Hey friend, Chris here from LogicProRules.com, the website that helps you get the most you can out of Apple's Logic Pro. Welcome. I am so excited. Today's video marks the beginning of a brand new series here on the channel and website where I'm going to dig into an area of Logic I pretty much have completely ignored since its introduction back in October of 2021. And what I'm referring to, of course, is that of spatial mixing with Dolby Atmos, which has been native to Logic since version 10.7. Now, Dolby Atmos, spatial audio, immersive audio. I think these are incredibly exciting times for us creatives. I mean, this is a completely new way to create and experience audio of any kind, whether it be on a pair of headphones or a full-blown speaker setup, on a soundbar, or anything in between. But I would suggest at first glance that Dolby Atmos spatial audio is pretty intimidating to get stuck into, right? If you've even briefly opened the included demo projects that come with Logic Pro for spatial audio, you suddenly have to worry about things like surround panners, height channels, 3D objects, loudness specifications, an Atmos renderer, and then having to export a completely separate Atmos master file to upload for distribution. So what I want to share with you the next couple of weeks over the next 8 videos is one man's journey into the immersive. By no means am I the Atmos expert. This is really my first adventure into the format. But I'm hoping through my personal journey over these next 8 videos that you will live and learn vicariously through my experience and pick up some ideas and tips along the way that will help you in your own journey into Atmos and spatial audio. Also, this 8-video series is sponsored by IK Multimedia, my first and only ever sponsor of any content here on Logic Pro Rules. So it was incredibly important to me if I was going to do a series on Atmos spatial audio that I have at my disposal not just a pair of headphones, but a full-blown speaker setup so I could share my experiences and impressions with you. And IK was so cool, they wanted to help me out with this series that they loaned me a set of their iLoud immersive bundle of speakers so I could do just that, set up the speakers in the comfort of my studio and really get to know the Atmos format. If you're not familiar with it, the iLoud immersive bundle is exactly that. It is a bundle that you can purchase for the immersive mixing format that includes 11 of the very popular iLoud MTM speakers from IK. And the iLoud MTMs are awesome for a bunch of reasons, but especially for Atmos and spatial mixing because number one, they're light, they're small, and they can be mounted just about anywhere without having to start screwing brackets into walls and ceilings thanks to the threading built into the bottom of each speaker. So in my case, I have all of the iLoud MTMs mounted directly to microphone stands, and the height channels are just hoisted up into the air on heavy-duty boom stands, and it works wonderfully. Number two, these speakers sound awesome. They have tremendous bass for their physical size. It really makes no sense to my brain, but they sound great. And then number three, the built-in ARC technology allows you to tune each speaker to your space, so what's coming out of the speakers is something you know you can trust. So just by connecting the included MEMS microphone, which is an omnidirectional mic, to each speaker individually, you place the microphone at the listening position, you walk over to the speaker, you press and hold on the calibration button until the lights on the speaker, both front and back, start to blink, at which point you just get out of the way, and the speaker will run a series of test tones to tune itself to your space. Once the lights stop blinking and the light on the front of the speaker shines green, you're good to go, and you just do this for each speaker in the setup. And once you're done, you know your speakers are tuned to your space. And again, it just works wonderfully. It takes like 10 minutes tops. It's crazy. I'll share more details about the iLoud Immersive Bundle throughout this series, but if you want more information, I'll include a link in the description below so you can go right to IK's website to learn more all about the speaker bundle. All right, so let's assume that somehow over the last couple of years, you have managed to avoid all the fanfare related to Dolby Atmos, spatial audio, immersive audio, and you're maybe watching this video right now thinking to yourself, Chris, I have no idea what you're talking about right now. So what I want to briefly give you is a quick definition or just a really basic idea of what Atmos and spatial audio actually are. So if you imagine with me that you are surrounded by speakers, not just the left, not just the right from in front of you, but the sides, the rear, the center, above. And thus sound can occur from anywhere in any direction, not just the front left, the front right, or some phantom center in between, but from behind your right-hand side or on the left-hand side, or upper right, or anywhere in between all of these speakers. And that's exactly it, surround sound. Now, we've had surround formats in yesteryears, and none of them really took hold. So what makes Atmos and spatial audio different? Well, there's a number of different reasons, but I'm going to give you 3. Number 1, Atmos and spatial audio bring the surround format to new heights, pun intended, thanks to the introduction of the height channels. In Logic Pro, in a spatial mixing enabled project, you can use the surround panners to move sounds all around the listener at these various speaker positions. But not only can you move sounds around the listener, but using the elevation control of the surround panner, you can move sounds to sound like they're coming from above the listener as well. So if you're listening on a speaker system that include height speakers, that sound will be moved to the height speakers. Or if you're listening on headphones with the included binaural renderers of the Atmos plugin on the master channel strip in a Dolby Atmos project in Logic Pro, those sounds will sonically sound like they're happening above you, even in headphones. It's crazy how well it works. Number 2, Atmos introduced the concept of the 3D object. So by their very nature, surround tracks are kind of tied to the speakers that they're playing out of. But Atmos introduces a second track type that allows us to more pinpointedly place sounds in the listening field, which are called 3D objects. 3D objects have their own panner in Logic Pro, and again, you can easily pinpointedly place sounds anywhere in the listening field. So if you want to place the vocalist directly behind your right ear, slightly above your head so it sounds like the vocalist is talking really close to your head from above, you can do that. And it will sound like that's where the vocalist is coming from. And because that 3D object's positioning is different and separate and unique from that of the surround bed of audio, that information for where that track is from front to back, left to right, top to bottom is delivered as metadata with that master Atmos file that you upload for distribution. This brings us to number 3, which is with Atmos, there's one mix or master file to rule all systems. Whatever system you're listening to your Atmos mix on, as long as it's Atmos enabled, it could be a soundbar for your TV or AirPods with your iPhone and Apple Music or speakers and an audio interface. As long as the system is Atmos enabled, your mix will translate. And that's because, thanks to the Atmos master file with all that information for the surround bed of audio, plus the metadata for the 3D objects and where they're supposed to be placed in the mix, that device will take that information and know what to do with it. So regardless of how many speakers are involved in that playback system, your mix will translate. And this proves especially helpful on headphones thanks to the binaural rendering that is used for headphone playback when listening to Dolby Atmos or spatial audio. Binaural rendering and playback is the process of creating a virtualized space for the listener while listening in headphones that is hopefully convincing enough that you get the sense of space and depth and height, that sounds are occurring not just inside the middle of your head or to the side of your left or right ear, but all around you. And though binaural is by no means a new technology or experience, it seems to have hit a new level of sophistication when it comes to listening to Dolby Atmos and spatial audio. And you can audition several different versions of binaural rendering right in Logic Pro by going to the Atmos plugin on the master channel strip in a spatial mixing enabled project. And you can either listen through Dolby's own binaural rendering for headphone listening and mixing and production, or through Apple's spatial audio renderer, including or excluding things like head tracking as well as personalized spatial audio. So if you own an iPhone that includes a true depth camera, you can actually tune your spatial audio listening experience based on your personal physiology. Cool, so we're gonna dig into all of this through the 8 videos of the next couple of weeks. So for the rest of today, I just wanna share with you what gear I'm using to get into spatial mixing with Atmos in Logic Pro. On the headphone front, we're pretty well covered. We have the binaural renderers built right into Logic Pro in that Atmos plugin on the master channel strip. So you just need the binaural rendering plus a pair of headphones. And I have 2 sets of headphones that I'll be using. That includes the AirPods Max from Apple. So I get the full spatial audio listening experience plus head tracking. And I also have a pair of the Sennheiser HD 600s, a classic mixing headphone. So again, cut and dry on the binaural front. You need headphones, you need a renderer, and you're good to go. So after that, let's talk about getting set up with the speakers in my studio, which includes the audio interface, the speakers in use, stands and mounting to get the speakers hoisted up, especially for the height channels, plus some extra software in between just to tighten things up. So let's start with the audio interface that I'm using in my studio. At this point, I'm in the incredibly fortunate position of now owning the Apogee Symphony IO Mark II, which is a behemoth of an interface. The Symphony IO Mark II is a modular system, so you purchase the shell of the interface and then can purchase different IO cards based on your needs and budget. So for example, if you need 8 microphone preamps to record, let's say a drum kit, you could purchase the 8 MP card. That includes 8 microphone preamps with 72 decibels of gain, plus 8 analog outputs, plus a variety of different digital connections and IO as well. Or if you have all the preamps that you need externally, you just need a way to get sound from out here into your Mac and Logic Pro, You could purchase this 16 by 16 special edition card for the Symphony IO Mark II, which is exactly that. It's just 16 channels in and out. But where the Symphony IO Mark II really becomes valuable is with multi-channel immersive playback and mixing. And that's because the interface doubles as a monitor controller as well. Thanks to the speaker set and monitor workflow functionality, you can easily route all sorts of complicated scenarios for different sets of speakers for different multi-channel setups with ease. Digging into the Symphony Control app for the interface, you can create up to 16 monitor workflows for all sorts of playback scenarios. For example, let's say as you work on your stereo projects in Logic Pro, you own 2 sets of stereo monitors that you like to flip between just to keep your ears fresh as you're working along. With the Symphony IO Mark II, you can set any set of outputs to receive audio from anywhere on your system. So in the case of Logic Pro, this is typically sent over playback 1 and 2. We can set 2 sets of outputs to receive playback 1 and 2 from Logic Pro and our system audio. And then from there, we can set each set of outputs to its own speaker set. We can now use the speaker set buttons in the control app or on the interface itself to flip between these, again, 2 sets of stereo speakers. And again, you can create up to 16 monitor workflows, so you can have a separate stereo mixing workflow as well as an Atmos or multi-channel monitor workflow. So once again, routing each set of analog outputs to the appropriate speakers for that multi-channel setup, you can then flip between different monitor workflows from, again, the control app on your Mac or using the touch screen on the interface itself. That brings us to the speakers that I'm using for my multi-channel setup here in my studio, which includes for the left and right channels, the iLoud Precision MTMs, which are also manufactured by IK. I purchased these speakers for my studio, and the remaining speakers are the iLoud Immersive Bundle. So the iLoud MTMs for the center, the surrounds, and the rear, plus the heights. I actually don't own a subwoofer at this time, so I'm working with a 7.0.4 setup, so 7 surround channels, 0 subwoofer or LFE, and 4 height channels. But hopefully this will change soon because as I'm listening to music on Apple Music that is Atmos or spatial audio enabled, I'm noticing a lot of pop and hip hop especially has a lot going on in that LFE channel. Now you might be like, hold up, Chris. You have 2 different sets of speakers in your studio from 2 different lines of speakers, from 2 different generations of speakers from IK. What's up with that? Is that really going to work? And I would say, absolutely, that makes sense. But what's so cool about the iLoud Precisions is that thanks to the built-in ARC technology, they can emulate the sound of other speaker types, including the iLoud MTMs. If we look in the Xmonitor software for the iLoud Precisions, you can set one of the remote options to the profile of the iLoud MTM speaker. And with the flip of a switch, we can have the tonality of the iLoud Precisions match that of the iLoud MTMs, and everything sounds wonderful. Nothing sounds weird. Everything sounds coherent and as if they're part of the same package of speakers. It just works wonderfully. I did a review of the iLoud Precision MTMs not too long ago, so I'll include a link in the description below so you can check it out if you want to learn more about these awesome speakers, because I love these things. They are so awesome, and I'm glad to own them. For mounting all these speakers, I have the iLoud Precisions on Ultimate Support monitor stands directly behind my desk. And then for all the other iLoud MTMs from the Immersive Bundle, I just have them mounted on the microphone stands, thanks to, again, the threading built into the bottom of each speaker. I did have to purchase 9 adapters from Sweetwater that go from 5/8 of an inch to 3/8 of an inch because the threading on the iLoud MTMs was a little too small for the microphone stands I had in my possession. But it was easy. I just screwed in the adapters and then mounted each speaker to each microphone stand. I have just 5 straight onstage microphone stands for the surround and center channels. And then I have 4 onstage heavy-duty boom stands to get those height channels above my head. And tuning each speaker was incredibly easy. I just placed the included MEMS microphone on a microphone stand at the listening position where I would be sitting while working and listening to spatial mixes. And then one by one, I connected the MEMS microphone to each speaker, pressed and held on the calibration button on the back of each speaker until the lights began to blink, at which point you just get out of the way, let the speaker run its test tones, the microphone picks it up, and then the speaker tunes itself to your space. It's so easy and takes like no time at all. All right, so we're off to the races, right? We have Logic Pro, which is Dolby Atmos capable for spatial mixing. I have an audio interface that can output to all these freaking speakers in my room. I have the speakers that are tuned to my space. But there's one other detail that we have to consider when we have so many speakers pointed at and firing at the listening position at the same time. And that's the possibility that certain speakers in the setup are arriving right here at the listening position, a little early, a little late. And thus, we could end up with a slightly phasey mess on our hands right here at the listening position when we're trying to make critical decisions in an Atmos or multi-channel environment. So I need a way to measure how long it takes sound to exit or emit from that speaker and arrive at the listening position, and then be able to take that value and delay the output of that particular channel by a set amount so everything hits right here at the same time. So first I used an app that I've owned forever called FuzzMeasure. It's like Room EQ Wizard, which allows you to measure the response of a speaker in a given space. By placing an omnidirectional microphone at the listening position, I was able to measure the output and speaker for each output individually for that time delay value. Again, it took very little time to measure each channel, and I made sure to do this before I calibrated each speaker to my space because FuzzMeasure needs to run a set of test tones to be able to measure, and I didn't want to tonally color those test tones in any sort of manner. With each of those time delay measurements in hand, now I needed a way to be able to time delay each output for my speaker setup by those set amounts. Of course, in Logic, we could load a multi-mono instance of the sample delay plugin after the Atmos plugin and then apply those time delays for each channel. But here's the thing. I want my speakers to be time aligned all the time, not just when I'm in Logic Pro mixing and creating, but when I'm listening to Atmos on Apple Music or Apple TV or anywhere else. So I had to use a third-party option, so I landed on Ginger Audio's awesome Sphere application. And this allowed me to more or less permanently time align all my outputs. Sphere is essentially a software monitor controller app that allows you to manage different inputs and outputs for a variety of different speaker setups. So by setting the output in Logic Pro and your system audio to that of one of Sphere's virtual devices, you can then set an input in Sphere to an appropriate speaker setup using one of Sphere's input devices. So I set one of the inputs to one of Sphere's 7.1.4 speaker setup. And then you can set an output device to your audio interface. In my case, that's the Symphony IO Mark II, once again for a 7.1.4 array. Then in the output device setup window, you can specify those time delays for each output for your audio interface to the 10th of a millisecond. And it works beautifully. Okay, obviously everything with Atmos or multi-channel setup is just more. You need more speakers, more outputs, more cabling, more places to plug things in. You got to tune the speakers, time align them. There's just so much to consider. Yeah, I wanted to share all of this with you on the off chance if you ever are going to purchase a bunch of speakers and set them up in your space, you had something to go by for how to get all of this stuff set up. Now in the next video, in video 2 of 8, we're going to do an Atmos listening party. I'm going to listen to some Atmos music from Apple Music on my speakers and react and give you my impressions. And hopefully this will be a benefit to you on the off chance that you're not going to purchase a bunch of speakers. I'll see you for more in the next video. Talk to you soon.